Hello, welcome to another tonal landscape oil painting demonstration. This is your painter in residence, M. Francis McCarthy. And the painting I'm bringing you today is Matapouri Bay. It's 7 by 14 inches, and I painted this, I guess about a week and a half ago, maybe a couple weeks back. Really happy with it, really happy to share it with you, and I consider it another stepping stone on my mastery of painting coastal type scenes, and we'll get into some of the challenges with painting that kind of scene, and some of the things I thought I did well and maybe I've struggled with in the past, and all that good stuff. We're working on hardboard, and it's been coated with some house paint, a good solid 3 coats there, and sanded in between. And we're doing the underpainting with some burnt umber, and I have a strong preference for doing an underpainting just to make sure I get all my ducks in order. I have experimented in the past with just, going straight in with color, but I think this is really a lot better plan since, you kind of have a real sense of where you want to go and your basic value structure and stuff like that. And it's all in my book. It's all over this channel too. Anyway, this scene is not far from here. I don't know if I've been there personally. I've been close to it, but it's quite a popular bay, Matapouri Bay, and you've got some great diving spots off the coast, and it's very beautiful beaches and things. So the landscape feature here, we call the heads out here. You'll forgive me if they call it a heads everywhere. I don't know. We didn't have any in California that I knew of. Anyway, they can be quite a challenge to paint. First of all, it's essentially a wedge. I consider the wedge shape to be, it's kind of a very stationary, almost stagnant kind of form. You definitely need to, doesn't mean you're not going to paint them, don't get me wrong. But this diagonal thing I've talked about in the last video, it's obviously evident here too, although, it's been ameliorated with the kind of step down of the trees and things like that. Anyway, you need to reckon with it. So in this particular composition, we're really lucky. We've got this mass of, I think it's an island, on our right side that is a perfect balancing point. And also helpfully, this like sort of dark mass of rocks. It's in the middle foreground there, middle ground, whatever. I would consider the head itself to be in the middle ground. So just in front of that, that's kind of a nice little balance too. And the real challenge with painting this kind of thing, well, there's a lot of challenges. Let's take them in order. Handling the foliage on something like this where you don't have a lot of distinct trees. If you were to, as I like to say, get in the weeds by working out individual trees and all that, you better get your pencil out and you better take some time. And that doesn't, in my mind, lend itself that well to oil painting, at least not the type of oil painting that I like to practice, which is a more immediate, expressive, and representational. I want you to be able to tell what it is, but I'm very much about giving you the impression of the foliage more so than working out a lot of individual trees. Now, with a different type of landscape, obviously, you're usually going to have a few definite trees there. Yeah. Oh, by the way, before I forget, I want to point out, if you're interested in seeing my reference image, check this out in the members area. It's it took me a while. It's 5 hours, but I did. We're going to talk about the various different aspects of this painting that I felt I did a good job with. So it was time well spent. And, you can always play it on double speed, but it's in 4K, and there's tips and tricks. And not only that, sometimes it's a bit of a struggle, and the struggle is real. So we're painting this guy now, and I kind of, I'm actually, in the context of the entire landscape, I ended up being really happy with it, but it ended up being a little more sort of, what's the word? Just a little softer than I might have wanted. Maybe I would have preferred a little more chatter and movement with the brushwork. But every painting is going to take its own sort of attributes on, and it's not long before you start working on it. You can see where you can move things in alignment with essentially what the painting wants to be, not to get real metaphysical, but um, you have some latitude to move things a bit, but you don't really have as much latitude as you might think to fundamentally change certain things. So the alternative is to well, the alternative is to put the painting back up in the easel when it's dry and do another color pass. And I used to do a lot of that. Basically, I don't like to do that at all now, and I've talked about it a lot in the channel. I just think it's better to do the painting fresh and leave it alone. Now, in this particular instance, I did the sky one day and let that dry, and then came in and did the landforms and the water the next day. And I thought that was, that worked really well because from the standpoint of photographing the painting session, it looks fine. The sky doesn't go that matte. Those colors don't really shift too much. I can't really do that with the landforms. The video will look terrible. Not only that, it's hard for me to work if the painting has gone matte. I can't really judge my values too well either. So now we're into the water now, and I'm super pleased with how I got this across. And a lot of you know I love painting the aqua. But I was so proud of the way I was able to get the shift. As the water comes in closer, it gets more warm and orangey. Alright, we got an ad for the book here. The book is the result of my 10, 12-year journey at the point of writing the book, of endeavoring to paint in a toneless way, my deep study of the masters, and trying to find the techniques that would get that sort of approach across. So, $60 US, international shipping's included. I'll ship it to you anywhere on the planet. Yep. So yeah, back to this water. Uh, I was going to say one of the big challenges, you can see it sort of dark there at the edge of the water, and I'm playing with lots of different approaches there, is where you get that little dark bit between the wet sand and the waves. You can't just smear it, and you can't leave it sharp. And I pulled it off, in an acceptable way in a lot of paintings. I've sold a lot of paintings, but I don't feel like I'd really gotten mastery of it. This is probably the first painting I felt like I did a really good job. The other thing is it can't be too consistent of a thickness. It's got to be nicely varied. It's a challenging thing to paint, and I know I'm always saying everything's just a shape, and that's certainly true of that too. But the shape that is mostly edges and not much shape, and edges, yeah, they can be challenging depending. Uh, yeah, so I got that nice transition in the water, and the other thing I'm going to be getting into, I'm very happy with the way the foliage came out. One of the things I struggled with a bit on this was, and maybe you've run into this, I think it was very much like noon type lighting. And the thing is, like some of the shapes right in front of that mass, or there was a tree there, but it wasn't nice. The shadows weren't nice. So what I did was I subtly shifted the lighting to come in from our upper right hand side, and that way I just moved and shifted the shadows a little bit, and that's all part of the kind of stuff you know to do when you've been painting a while. The problem with the pure top down thing is that it wouldn't have really translated well with the sort of dawn colors in the sky. For one, I happen to know that the dawn comes up in the sky here on this is eastern side of the island, right? So there's that, and also just making sure that everything's congruent. Also, I chose to just merge what would have been the that tree shape. It wasn't super distinct, and it's the kind of thing I could have made distinct. All right, you see me creeping up on that wet sand there, and I'm off to a good start. This went real well, and One thing is I will break up the painting process like I did with the sky here, and then the land and the water. Well, actually, what I did was the one day I did the underpainting, and then the sky, and then I came in and finished it the next day. And as I said, that looks good from the standpoint of video recording, but it's also good from the standpoint of you know, having a certain amount of you know, fuel in the tank, so to speak, to take on more challenging aspects. I'm real happy with the way the heads itself came out. And you can see, instead of leaving these little tan areas around or painting them first, I chose to come in and place them on top. And then you see that move with the paper towel. That's a little tip for you. You know, you can kind of, if you do that where you're putting wet paint on top of other wet paint, you can give it a little pap with the paper towel and just sort of push it in. And the real secret to getting wet paint on top of wet paint is to use your oil. If the paint's too thick, all you do is scrape the paint below as you're trying to paint on top. Yeah, so the other thing I want you to note is that you know, I've got like the way I work is not a straight up block in, but you can see in the water I haven't worked out every aspect of it. But when I work it in, I'm working it in. I'm always looking to close, so to speak. I'm always looking to get it as final and nice looking at each stage of the painting process as I can. Some painters are content to just, you know, block things in heavily, and then you know, start adding details on top, either in another painting session or the same painting session. And that's a valid approach. I mean, I do what works for me. I do tend to put if I'm going to have white water, white waves in, I tend to put them in last. And it looks like there's a lot of wet paint there, but where I'm painting right now, it's just basically like raw umber-ish tone sort of scumbled on. I don't put a ton of paint down, but I do think it's beneficial to have usually a raw umber into raw sienna kind of tone. And I'm super happy with the way I got these waves in. They look like they're rolling, and we can see the light of the sand coming up through them. And you know, I had mentioned on the channel, I'm sure at some points, I've been doing these coastals a while now, but it was a newer thing for me. I was a pretty much inland only guy, and inland painter, I mean. I was talking about putting a book together on painting coastals, and I have a lot of ideas about it, but I backed off of that. I'm working on a different project right now that you'll be hearing about. I'm going to make sure it's going a little further along before I get into what it is. But people in the members area would know, because I can't help but talk about it as I'm painting. But yeah, I don't want to get too much into that. Anyway, I was going to do this book on coastal painting, but honestly, I didn't feel like I had enough mastery. Here, I feel like I got a good sense of that foamy water rolling in. I got a good sense of that that one long wave coming in. I could see how I could have finessed it a little bit better. And this is always a temptation. Oh yeah, by the way, every now and again I do get my big, lately I've been doing that more. I don't know why. I have a big clean brush, and I will just knock some of the tops of the edges off what I've painted. There's a lot of different things you can do. Similar result. You can pick at it with a palette knife, or you can sort of go over it with your your brush. Actually, the black brush tends to work well. Now, what I'm doing there, I actually broke out a sable. Yes, that's a real sable brush, and it's actually, I think it's a synthetic, but you get the idea. Hardly ever use those in my process, but in the reference were these little trees, and wanted to leave them out. I don't really like. Oh, sorry, that's my wife's phone. Don't really like painting that kind of thing, but we put them in, and I'm real happy with the way they turned out. I'm really happy with the way the whole painting turned out. Anyway, that's it for this video. Until I come back with another one for and hopefully for your edification and enjoyment. Take good care of yourself, stay out of trouble, and fight the power.